The U.S. Supreme Court has struck down a ban on bump stocks, a device that allows semi-automatic rifles to fire like a machine gun. Now, the ruling, once again, putting the gun violence debate back in the spotlight.
And it's all happening right in the middle of Gun Violence Prevention Month. Dr. Eric Fliegler is a pediatric emergency medicine physician at Mass General for Children. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We want to know, how has gun violence changed how you do your job?
Yeah, so unfortunately, gun violence is such a huge part of what happens in America today. When it comes to gun violence, as a pediatric emergency physician, we worry about what are the things that are hurting and killing our kids the most. And it turns out that firearms, as of 2019, have become the #1 killer of children. That's more than cancer, more than any diseases, more than motor vehicle crashes. So that is something that is a reality that our country has moved towards, and is something that affects, of course, our work in the emergency department. Of course, our goal is to prevent people from ever having to be hurt by guns, so we don't have to care for them. And a lot of what I do and the work of my colleagues is trying to think about how do we actually do firearm prevention, firearm violence prevention.
And to that point, for families who do have guns at home, what's the most important thing you want them to know?
Yeah, so many families in America keep guns because they want their families to be safe, and that's part of how they view safety for their family. But it turns out that children in particular are very curious, and that we really need to think about guns not just as a potential safety measure for safety of your home, but as a risk for your child as well. And so if people are going to have guns at the home, one of the most important things that they can do is make sure that those firearms are stored securely. By securely, I mean a couple of different things. One, the gun should be stored unloaded. So we do not want the ammunition in the guns themselves, because when curious children get them, or when depressed teenagers get them, they're a high risk. Second, those firearms must be stored securely. That means locked up, and locked up in a way that the child themselves does not know how to access it and cannot get it out, because if they can, then it's really not making a difference. Most people don't think about this in advance. They think, I've taught my child about gun safety, I've taken them to the shooting range, and so they should be okay. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when children reach severe depression, or people get curious and they want to show it to their friend. That's when those accidents happen. Over 10,000 children every single year are dying from guns, and this is something no family should ever have to deal with.
When we talk about gun violence prevention, the idea is to have that discussion before there's even a need for the emergency room. Talk a little bit about how those conversations are now happening with families.
Sure. So, as a physician, we're used to having many interesting conversations with families. That could include about, do you wear a seatbelt? Do you use car seats? Talk about drunk driving, talking about smoking and sexual activity. These are topics that could potentially be uncomfortable, but actually we do a really nice job of having these conversations with families. Talking about guns has to be part of the same thing. And so we really encourage physicians, nurse practitioners, other people, mental health providers who talk with families to talk about this up front, to have frank discussions, and to also recognize that, families are trying to take care of themselves, and that we need to be very cognizant, that we need to be considerate of their feelings about this. But we need to have these conversations. It needs to be done in a meaningful way, in such a way that we can have a collaboration.
Makes sense. I mean, now they ask, do you feel safe at home? So why not roll all of the important topics into those discussions? Dr. Eric Fliegler, a pediatric emergency physician at Mass General Hospital, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.